Chapter 10. False Sunrise. Asami. When Asami returned from her walk with Naga, she found that Korra had fallen asleep early. The rest of the household was gloomily silent. She wanted to ask Senna what was wrong, or Tonrock. She even considered waiting by Korra's bedside until she woke up so she could ask her, but in the end, she knew it was none of her business. She was, as Tonrock had said the other night, practically part of the family. She wasn't really part of it, though, so Asami returned to the guest room, pulled the heavy sealskin blanket over her head, and prayed that tomorrow would be better. If nothing else, tomorrow was busy. Senna was already at work in the kitchen when Asami awoke, and Tonrock was out gathering the last few ingredients needed for Korra's requested fancy dinner. Asami performed her usual morning routine of seeing to Korra's needs, aside from the most personal, for which she traded places with Senna and watched over the various pots in the kitchen for a while, just to make sure nothing overflowed. When Senna returned, sighing, Asami rushed back to Korra's side. She found her teary-eyed, but otherwise stone-faced and silent. When Asami asked what was wrong, Korra just turned away and quietly asked her to leave. Asami couldn't help worrying about Korra's sudden change in mood. Is it my fault? She replayed the events of yesterday in her head over and over, lingering always on the memory of Korra's lips so close to her own, her shaky hand guiding Asami in, only for Korra to turn away at the last second. When Korra told her that she wasn't ready, but she wanted to be, it had felt like the happiest moment of Asami's life, but it hadn't lasted. Whatever conversation her best friend had with her parents had changed everything. Now she won't even look at me. Sitting restlessly on the couch, Asami spent the next few hours doodling wheelchair upgrades in her sketchbook, with occasional breaks spent trying to piece things together with the limited information she had. Maybe Korra told her parents about what she and Asami nearly did, and they had somehow shut her down? No, that doesn't make any sense, Asami thought. Both Senna and Tonrock had explicitly told her to go for it. Why would they do that if they didn't approve? But if they weren't upset with her, why were they also being distant? Eventually, Asami decided that whatever it was probably had nothing to do with her. She couldn't imagine Korra being so willingly intimate with her, even initiating it herself, if she was unsure about what she wanted, a thought that still set Asami's cheeks on fire, even if nothing had come of it yet. Korra's parents, upon further reflection, seemed more concerned than angry. That makes things simple, then, she decided. Even if Korra's whole family was unhappy, Asami could be the one to stay positive, just like she'd been doing with Korra for months now. She could keep it together, not let the doubts get to her, and push through the bad feelings, so that everyone else could follow the trail she blazed. Putting down her sketch pad, Asami sat up straight, rolled her shoulders like she was squaring up to fight a giant moose lion, and put on her best smile. Just in time for dinner, apparently, as Senna called for her to bring Korra. The fancy celebration dinner certainly lived up to its name, at least as far as Asami could tell. The table was packed with all kinds of traditional Southern Water Tribe dishes, a product of Senna's long day working in the kitchen. Asami plated up a small helping of stewed sea prunes, just to be polite, as well as a cup of salty seaweed soup flecked with bits of squid, a well-sized and lean piece of seal meat seared to perfection, and even a whole leg of giant crab, imported all the way from the northern tribe, served with the shell expertly removed. The crab's massive claws, also deshelled, were reserved for Korra, although she had barely so much as picked at it since Senna put it on her plate. As the minutes wore on, Asami realized she wasn't eating much of anything, actually. Instead, Korra made periodic glances at Naga, who was resting beneath the couch in the connected living room after being ejected from the table for begging a little too emphatically. Asami could only assume that Korra would sooner feed her own fancy dinner to her dog than to herself, even if her parents kept making gentle insistences to the latter. Asami decided to give it a shot herself. "So, Korra, you grew up eating this stuff," she said, doing her best to work some cheer into her voice. "What's your favorite?" Korra only shrugged. Asami continued anyway. Okay, which one do you think I'd like most? I think we can count out the sea prunes." She paused, then turned to Senna. No offense, of course. None taken. Senna gave a weak smile. They're not exactly a favorite outside the South Pole. Asami nodded and turned back to Korra. So, sea prunes aside, where should I start? Korra looked at her, or maybe through her. Probably the crab, she said finally, in a voice wrung free of emotion. And now to close it out. Have you tried yours yet? Those claws look great. Asami held her friend's gaze with a smile until at last Korra raised her knife and fork with slightly shaking hands to cut the tip from one of the crab's claws. She took a bite, chewed, and, even if only for a second, grinned at the taste. It's really good, she said. Thanks, Mom. Of course, honey, Senna said. Your father went to the docks early this morning and got the best-looking crab they had. Asami thought she heard her voice waver. Thanks, Dad, Korra said. I appreciate it. Anything for you, sweetheart, said Tonrock. Korra nodded slowly in response. The conversation was a start, but Asami knew she could do better. Your coordination is great, by the way, Korra, she said. Katara's going to lose it when she sees what you can do now. Korra eyed her hands, still clutching her knife and fork. I've never known Katara to lose it over anything. You should have met her when she was younger, Tonrock said with a smile. I heard from Kaya that after Tenzin got his first glider, Katara would yell loud enough to knock him out of the sky if he ever got reckless. Asami laughed. That sounds counterproductive. In her periphery, she spotted Korra taking a bite of seal, and then another. Asami grinned, just a little proud of herself, then took a bite of her own. Oh wow, this is amazing. It's always been one of Korra's favorites, said Senna. You know, sweetie, now that you can eat on your own again, we can have it a lot more. Korra stared at the table for a moment, then snapped to attention. Oh, okay. It's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but hey, it counts as grip exercises, Asami said. Senna and Tonrock both chuckled. Korra took another bite of seal. Things mellowed out a little more after that. Senna and Tonrock took turns telling stories about Korra in her youngest days, all of which put a smile on Asami's face. Of course, Korra was just as lively and energetic as a kid as she was today, or as she was before the Red Lotus. Now, though... Asami hid her sudden frown with her napkin as she pushed the stupid doubts away. Korra will come back from this, she reminded herself. She'll come back stronger than ever. Asami knew that in the core of her being, even if some days Korra acted like she didn't believe it anymore. She glanced at her best friend, who was weakly laughing along to some story Senna was telling about a 4-year-old Korra nearly burning the house down. Her plate wasn't empty. She had barely touched her soup or sea prunes, and her seal and crab claws were less than halfway finished. But given how much food she'd been served when Asami first brought her in, Korra had plainly eaten more tonight than any day in recent memory. See, Sato, Asami thought to herself, you're getting somewhere. Man, Korra, you were hungry tonight, she said, giving Korra a playful nudge. Korra looked over at her plate and the bowls beside it. I guess so, she agreed. I'm getting full, though. Tonrock stood up with a stretch. Me too. Can my wife cook or what? He patted Senna on the shoulder, then turned to Korra. Want me to get all that out of your way? Not yet, Korra said quickly. I might pick at it a little more. Of course, honey, Senna said. How about your father and I start cleaning up? She eyed Asami and smiled. We'll be in the kitchen if you two need anything. Asami felt her face heat up. Beside her, Korra nodded. Senna and Tonrock gathered what they could and exited to the kitchen. As soon as they were gone, Korra took a deep breath, then turned to Asami. Could you go get Naga? She asked. Dad doesn't like it when she eats from the table, but, well... She gestured toward the kitchen. You're all done then? Asami asked. Yeah. Putting down her fork and knife, Korra stretched as best as she could, a small raising and tensing of her shoulders. This was a really nice dinner. Okay, Asami smiled. I'll go fetch her. She made her way to the living room and roused Naga with a scratch behind the ears. Hey, sweetie, she said quietly. Korra's got a little something special for you. With a yawn and a stretch, the polar bear dog rose from her nap and plodded her way towards the kitchen, with Asami close behind. When they returned, Korra was sitting right where Asami had left her, now with one hand across her lap and the other dangling a half-eaten piece of seal out for Naga. The meat was still dripping, though thankfully Korra managed to avoid getting any on the long sleeves of her bedrobe. Changing it wouldn't be difficult, but Asami knew Korra would rather not have to go through the clumsy process of changing her clothes more than once in a single night. Hey, girl, Korra said in a hushed voice. You'll love this. Mom did a great job. She tossed the piece of seal up, and Naga immediately caught it in the air, swallowing it whole. Did she even have time to taste it? Asami giggled. Oh, can I give her the crab? Sure, Korra said. My hands are kind of sore anyway. Asami brushed her fingers through Korra's hair. You did great tonight, she said softly. Seriously, Korra, I'm so proud of you. Korra looked up at her. Thanks, Asami, she said. Yeah, thank you. Asami took a moment to lose herself in those eyes she loved so much, bluer than the sky and deeper than the ocean. Then she lowered herself beside Korra's chair and embraced her, holding her as close as she dared. Korra let out a shaky breath, then matched Asami with a one-armed hug. They stayed like that for a while. When Asami felt Korra nuzzle a little closer beneath the crook of her neck, her heart swelled so much that she thought it might beat its way out of her chest. A loud clattering sound made Korra yelp, and the moment ended. Asami let her go, and they both looked over to see that Naga, always so gentle and patient, had apparently grown sick of waiting for them and elected to finish Korra's leftovers herself right off the plate. Tonrock poked his head out from the kitchen. Is Naga eating off the table again? Senna laughed from out of sight. Oh, hush, let her have this, she said. I'll clean it up later, girls. Don't trouble yourselves with it. Okay, Korra sighed heavily. Thank you. So much for feeding her myself, Asami said with a shrug. Oh well, there'll be other chances. I'm sure, said Korra. She folded her hands neatly in her lap. Could you, carry me to bed? She asked. I'm really tired. Of course. Asami couldn't help but smile. Carrying Korra was her favorite part of any day. With gentle motions, she got her arms under Korra's shoulders and knees, then slowly lifted her from her dining room chair. Korra curled up in Asami's grasp, with her arms tucked in against her chest. Asami heard her best friend sigh, and for the second time tonight, felt Korra nuzzle a little closer against her neck. The walk down the hall was quick and quiet, but beneath Asami's silent smile, fireworks were going off. When they made it to the bedroom, Asami asked, Want to try brushing your teeth first? I know it's usually my job, but if your hands are steady enough to use a fork and knife, I bet you can handle that too. When Korra didn't respond, Asami gently nudged her in her grip. Korra? Huh? Korra twitched, her head jolting up. Asami grinned. She wasn't kidding about being tired. After a pause, she reasoned, one night without brushing her teeth won't kill her. Being cozy in bed is more important anyway. As loath as she was to relinquish the adorable, sleepy girl in her arms, Asami moved to the bed and gently placed Korra down. She helped prop up Korra's back and head against her stack of pillows, laid her legs down on the mattress, and pulled the blankets up over her waist. When Asami was finished, Korra pulled the largest of them a little higher, over her arms and chest, then looked up at Asami pensively. Could you get me some furs from the closet? She asked. It's kind of cold in here. No problem, Asami said. She made her way to the closet, collecting the two thickest furs that were stacked on one of the shelves. It was definitely chilly tonight, and Korra being clad in only her usual pajamas, sleeveless shirt, and a thin, flowy bedrobe wouldn't help much. Asami paused, then grabbed a third fur for good measure. When she returned to the bedside, she saw Korra was staring at her right hand, flexing her fingers. You really are getting stronger, Asami said. I wonder how soon it'll be before you can start bending again. It's all about the wrists or whatever, right? Korra stared at her hand for a moment longer, then nodded. Some basic waterbending stuff is, yeah. You'll get there, Asami assured her as she started laying the furs over Korra's bed. Give it a few more months and you'll be throwing around tidal waves like it's nothing. Korra stretched and let both her hands fall to the bed. Maybe. Can I get you anything else? Asami asked, taking a seat in her usual bedside chair. Are you still cramping? I could get you another hot water bottle. No, that's okay. Korra shook her head. Her voice sounded distant. I don't think I need anything else. In that case, do you... Now was her chance, though Asami took a moment to assure herself that even if it didn't pan out, it wouldn't be her only chance. Do you want to talk for a bit? About, She took a deep breath to cool her rapidly warming face. About yesterday? About us? Silence held for a moment. Korra looked towards Asami, though their eyes never met. Not right now, she answered. I think I want to get some sleep, actually. She blinked, then found Asami's hand and squeezed it. But I'm okay, I promise. I'm just tired. Stupid, useless doubts bickered in the back of Asami's head. But she ignored them. Instead, she made herself smile, squeezed Korra's hand back, and said, "All right, I'll be down the hall if you need anything, okay? Just shout my name. I promise I won't mind." I know. Korra's gaze fell to the shape of her legs, barely discernible beneath the many blankets and furs. Good night, Asami. Asami stood and moved to the doorway, turning the light off on her way out. Good night, Korra, she whispered. Then she slowly closed the door. Minutes later, she was back in the guest bedroom, crawling beneath the sealskin blankets for yet another restless night of longing. Eventually, sleep took her, and she dreamed of her father, of his distant warmth and infrequent encouragements when she was little, of his raised voice demanding quiet and the world turning sideways, of the satisfied look in his eyes whenever Asami showed him something she made, so long as she made it right, of how he pushed her to do better, to be better, to live up to his constantly growing expectations, of how his face twisted with hatred when he tried to kill her, of the venomous rejection in his voice as he shouted her name, Asami, Asami, Asami. Asami? Her eyes opened and she sat up in bed. A guest bed, she had to remind herself. A leftover in someone else's home. Not mine. Never mind. Asami! Her name echoed in the frigid air. Asami, are you awake? Sleep fled her limbs as she realized Korra was calling to her from down the hall. As quickly as she could, Asami climbed out of bed, slipped into the blue fur-lined robe Senna had given her, and made her way to Korra's room. She paused before the door, going through scenarios. Korra probably had another nightmare, she thought. But then again, maybe she just needs to use the bathroom. Or she might need a new pad. If so, I'll have to wake Senna. No matter what it was, Asami was determined to handle it with a smile. If last night's dinner had proven anything to her, it was just how much Korra and her parents relied on that smile when things got bad. Slowly, she opened the door, bracing herself to see her best friend in tears, only instead to find Korra grinning, using her stiff arms and shoulders as best she could to ward off Naga from climbing onto the bed. Oh, good, you're awake, Korra laughed. A little help. She snuck in here and won't leave me alone. I'm so sorry, Asami said as she moved to Korra's bedside. I must not have closed the door all the way. Naga, down. With a whine, the polar bear dog complied, but not before giving Korra one last lick on the cheek. Thanks, Korra said, smiling. And don't worry about the door. It's okay. I actually wanted to see you anyway. Naga here just gave me a good excuse. Oh? Asami kept her voice as neutral as she could. What's up? Nothing's up. I don't know. I missed you. Korra looked up at her. Even in the dark, Asami could have sworn her eyes were glowing. I know it's late, but will you sit with me? That was the easiest question of Asami's life. Of course, she said. After making sure Naga was still lying down beside the bed, she took a seat in the bedside chair. As soon as she did, Korra held out a hand for her. Asami took it gratefully. So, just can't sleep? She asked. I'm sure I could if Naga wasn't trying to squish me, Korra said. But I wanted to see you before I do. I see, was the best answer Asami could come up with that didn't contain some sort of presumption. Asami, I need you to know how much you mean to me, Korra told her. How grateful I am for everything you've done for me. I know there have been a lot of days where I just totally shut down, but I hope you know that's not your fault. A strange look flashed across her face, somewhere between insistence and urgency. I don't ever want you to blame yourself, okay? Not for anything. It's all right, Korra, Asami said in what she hoped was a soothing tone. I don't blame myself for how hard things have been, or you. You have good days and bad days, just like everyone else. I can never be upset with you over that. Taking a chance to be brave, she reached across the bed to hold Korra's other hand as well. Even on the bad days, I still care about you just as much. Korra's breathing hitched. For a split second, Asami thought she was crying, and her heart sank. But then Korra made the same sound, and Asami realized she was faintly laughing to herself. You're too good to me, Korra murmured with a half-smile. You're just too good, Asami. You deserve so much more than me. Asami looked into those beautiful blue eyes, felt both of Korra's hands in her own, and suddenly boldness lit a fire in her chest. She brushed a few errant strands of hair from Korra's face up and over her ear before settling a palm on her cheek. "I don't want more," Asami said. "I want you." Korra leaned into her touch, her hand covered Asami's, then she closed her eyes, laced their fingers together, and let out a quiet, drawn-out sigh. Asami's heart hammered in her ears so loudly that she worried it might wake up the whole house. I need to say it, she realized all at once. I need to say it right now. If I wait any longer, I might actually go crazy. "Korra," she began slowly, anxiously. "Korra, Asami." Korra laid a finger over Asami's lips. "It's okay. I know." She knows. Korra knew, and she was still smiling. She was still looking up at Asami so sweetly, with her messy long hair and soft-looking lips and eyes shining like blue fire in the dark. "And?" The word parted from Asami's lips like a prayer. Rather than answer, Korra pressed a gentle kiss to her cheek. "Later, okay?" she said in a voice that was feather-light. "I think I want to sleep now, if that's all right." Tears of joy lined Asami's face. "Of course that's all right." Korra hesitated. "Actually, will you, She stared oddly at Asami, as if confused by her own request. "Will you stay with me tonight?" No words had ever made Asami so happy. "There's room on the bed if you move me over," Korra was saying. "If you don't want to, that's okay. I just thought I'd..." "Just scoot over already," Asami giggled. "Oh, I mean, I'll help you. Here." Moving Korra was easy enough. Korra elected to shift her stack of pillows all on her own, even though the shuffling motion was clearly a struggle with her stiff shoulders. Asami could not have been any prouder of her. She slipped beneath the blankets and sighed happily. Korra's hand found hers. Asami rolled onto her side, facing Korra, who raised an arm to invite her closer. She cuddled with the beautiful girl who was her best friend and so much more, pillowing her head against Korra's chest and listening to the steady drumbeat of her heart. And soon after, as sleep took her for the evening, Asami Sato was blessed with dreams far sweeter than any she'd had in years.